I'd say three main reasons when I think about this. One, probably the most important, was there was an emotional reason. So my girlfriend is Russian. But secondly, on a personal level, with my education and my career, after spending so long wishing to be a professional, I was now a professional wishing I had this wonderful creative environment to just explore and make mistakes, and I realized this was a great opportunity to do so. When I'm older, I don't want to look back in my life and say, well, I could have gone and studied illustration in Moscow for 3 years, but it was too stressful, you know. But something that actually really struck me was after I went back home for Christmas, and it was really wonderful to go back and see my family. But when I came back to Moscow, having been back home, I came back to the airport, got a taxi back to my apartment, and when I saw my apartment building and I arrived outside, in my mind I said to myself, like, oh, it's good to be back home. And this was a real shock to me, that I really wasn't expecting how quickly I would accept this environment as my space. Because I really wasn't prepared for, something I really wasn't prepared for was the scale of Moscow. The size of Moscow, not necessarily just in population, but in physical space, just really blew my mind. Something that I could always experience back at home was that there would be, I don't know, if I went out on a Sunday evening and it was 1 a.m. and I was walking through the city center, it would probably be empty. I mean, you could easily find points where you were walking home and there was no one around, and it was just you. And that's basically impossible in Moscow, in a wonderful way, that it just always feels, like you said, it always feels alive. And actually, as much as Moscow is big, once you start to explore and once you start to maybe not just use the metros, but walk around a bit, try to make these connections physically, it starts to connect, it starts to feel smaller. In one sense, one of the shocks actually was how, despite the language barrier, I would feel when walking through Moscow and interacting with people, I actually feel a real connection and a real honesty and a sincerity from people in Russia and in Moscow. Moscow has done a very good job of showing me that despite all of the PR and despite all of the stereotypes people had about what it was going to be like, and yes, every now and then, someone who talks like this will offer me some vodka, but like, it's actually not as often as I was led to believe, yeah, or as I would like. You know, Moscow will always be a specific environment compared to any broad comments you want to make about Russia. Moscow has proven to be just such an inspiring and unique place that it's, in the space of these 9 months, it's like, I can't imagine not being here now. When it comes to applying for jobs and putting this on my CV, when I say to people and potential employers, you know, I spent 3 years studying in Moscow, they're going to be excited to see what that added, what difference. So when they say, okay, we've got guys from all these countries, but this is the guy from Moscow, they're going to want to see, and they'll expect to see, and I'm sure they will see, something different, something that this visual environment, this cultural environment gave me, and that permeated into my art and into my practice, that is going to set me apart. It's going to be different.